Hi, welcome to Ryan Recaps. If you like this video, please like and subscribe for more Manhwa Recaps. Our story begins on Lunar New Year. We first see a video of a baby that is adored by the protagonist's mother and father, who love how the baby resembles someone named Jimin. Then we get to see our protagonist, Han Jia, who is a freelancer without a full-time job. She is currently cooking, but knows what is happening in the video because her parents watched it too many times. The protagonist gets angry when her father eats the food that she just made, but her mother then reminds her that she still lives under their roof and thus needs to follow their rules. Then, the protagonist's sister, brother-in-law, niece, and nephew arrive at her parents' house. The protagonist tries to get her sister to cook dinner, but is reprimanded by her parents because she is acting like a gangster. The protagonist's brother-in-law then reveals that they are having a third child, and the protagonist's parents get very excited. The protagonist decides to step outside and smoke, but then meets a stranger who is eating a piece of chicken breast. It turns out that the stranger is the protagonist's childhood friend, Jin Minchul. Surprised, the protagonist screams in shock and demands why Jin is eating chicken breast in public, to which he responds that he wanted to eat a holiday feast without gaining too many calories. The protagonist then remembers that she and Jin used to live in the same complex when they were little. They were very different in school, but the protagonist was very interested in Jin. The protagonist comes back to reality and notices how Jin has changed a lot since she last saw him. The protagonist observes that Jin is 32 years old, an assistant manager at a mid-sized company, and most importantly, is very fine looking. We then see how the protagonist has nowhere to go, still lives in her parents' house, and has no conscience. This makes the protagonist realize that Jin is a lot better than she is. Jin then starts to ask about how the protagonist's life has been, to which she responds with nothing special. Jin tells the protagonist that his life involves going to work, exercising, playing games, showering, and sleeping, to which the protagonist responds that it seems like he is living his life to the fullest. Jin then complains that his parents are nagging him to get married, and the protagonist also laments that she has been feeling some pressure from her parents as well. The protagonist then jokingly suggests that she and Jin should get married, to which Jin acts very surprised. The protagonist explains that it would solve both their problems, but then tells Jin that this is just a joke. Then the story cuts to the protagonist looking very bewildered at Jin asking her parents for her hand in marriage, to which her parents agree. The protagonist still looks bewildered even when she is in the middle of her wedding ceremony and during the beginning of their honeymoon. We then see Jin just finish showering as well as the protagonist looking extremely nervous. Sitting on the bed, the protagonist pinches her cheek to make sure that this is not a dream. The protagonist then feels very weird that she is actually married to Jin. The protagonist then sees Jin's abs as well as his muscular forearm and then slaps herself to get herself back together. Jin asks what the protagonist is doing, to which she responds that she is going to sleep. Upon asking what Jin is doing, he responds that he is trying to find a tool for their peaceful night, and the protagonist gets very flustered, thinking he is getting cobalt blue. The protagonist then gets even more flustered, thinking about what a normal couple does on their first night together. Jin interrupts her train of thought by handing her some earplugs, warning her that he tends to snore when he gets very tired. Jin then tells the protagonist that he is going to go to sleep and places his earplugs into his ears and puts on his sleeping mask. The protagonist then gives Jin a look and then puts in her earplugs and also goes to sleep. The next morning, the protagonist is having trouble deciding what to wear, but screams when she sees what Jin is wearing. The protagonist scolds Jin for his choice of clothes and grabs him by the ear to pick out some more suitable clothes for him. At the clothing shop, the protagonist has Jin try out different types of clothing. The protagonist finally finds a set of clothes that look good to her, but shrieks in shock when Jin tells the cashier to give him 7 sets of the clothing. Jin then looks confused and says that wouldn't it be perfect to wear 7 sets of the clothing that the protagonist thinks is great? The protagonist then questions why Jin wants to buy several sets of the same clothing and tells him that she is going to pick out some more clothing for him. As the protagonist is picking out some clothes, Jin looks to the side and spots a bikini. Jin then asks if their next itinerary is the banana boat ride, as well as if he can pick out some swimwear for the protagonist to wear. The protagonist then looks at Jin in disbelief and then blushes furiously. We then see the protagonist and Jin walking towards the beach, and the protagonist is wondering why Jin picked out some swimwear for her. Wondering why Jin didn't tell her what he bought, the protagonist enters a changing room and peers into the bag. We then see the protagonist walking towards Jin in horror, wearing an all-black, full-body swimsuit. When Jin sees the protagonist approach him, he tells her about how the swimsuit has high cold and water resistance, which helps them move easier in the water. The protagonist then tells Jin to look around him to see what other people are wearing, to which Jin replies that everybody else wears bikinis and shorts because they are too hot. We see the protagonist beginning to scold Jin, but then cut to her having fun on their water ride, thinking to herself that she actually enjoyed the ride to the fullest, and that the full body swimsuit was actually very comfortable. We then see various pictures of the protagonist and Jin having fun throughout the day. Finally, the protagonist and Jin are walking down the beach when the protagonist squats down to see what else is on their itinerary. Jin then asks whether the protagonist is tired, to which she responds why she should be tired, and that there are still a lot of things left on their itinerary and that they only have a few more days to do them. Jin then tells the protagonist to look at her heels. When the protagonist does, she finds a big bruise that has developed on her heels. Even when the protagonist says that the bruise is just a scratch, Jin gets down and tells the protagonist to get on his back. The protagonist blushes and starts to mutter about the rest of their itinerary when Jin tells her that he can't bear looking at her hurt and tells her once more to get on his back. We finally see the protagonist on Jin's back walking down the beach back to their hotel room. The protagonist then blushes hard and feels nostalgic about being carried on someone's back. The protagonist then gently blows into Jin's ear, which surprises him. After their friendly banter, the protagonist looks off into the beautiful sunset and tells Jin to stop and take some pictures of them against the sunset. Later, the protagonist feels very embarrassed over what happened between her and Jin, and can't believe how she felt like her heart was going to burst. Just as the protagonist was feeling great, she sees Jin laying on the other bed, snoring, and her feelings of affection immediately fall. The next morning, after flying back to Korea, the protagonist wonders why there are a bunch of boxes lying around. Asking her parents, the protagonist finds out that she is moving in with Jin. In the next scene, we see Jin and the protagonist sitting across from each other, ready to form a contract. Hey guys, this is the end of the video. This was chapters 1 through 3 of the webtoon A Match Made by Heaven by Chance. This is my first video, and if you guys like this sort of video, please like and subscribe, and I would be very open to any suggestions or any other webtoons that you would like me to cover. Thank you guys for listening, and I'll see you guys next time.